Dandadan Episode 7 is honestly Yuki Nobutatu's emotional masterpiece, and I'm not gonna lie, it made me cry. And I don't think I've cried this hard since... Seriously, Dandadan just had one of the all-time episodes of this year. Nothing can really compare to it. Well, besides... So let's go ahead and jump right into this episode of Dandadan and break down everything about it. Last video got 1,205 likes, thank you, so I challenge you to get this sucker to 1,250 likes. I also challenge you to order some gamer subs using my 10% off partner code, which gives me some kickback. So after the opening sequence, we will get into that. The episode picks up in the middle of this incredible fight between Okarune, Momo, Turbo Granny against Acrobatic Silky. This was simply phenomenal. One of the best things about Dandadan is how it is able to be so creative in nearly every aspect, including this next part where Momo comes up with a plan to tangle her hair up with the beams by having Okarune run around erratically. Can I just say there is a reason I call Science Saru Winscience Waru? It's because they're handing out dubs like they're handing out depression to all the good boys and girls. I think what I like the most about this animation style is it's not just like a Mappa or Madhouse show, you know, it's not just good, because it's good because it also has an amazing art direction. My good buddy Adoraborb Esquire brought up an interesting observation that only he would know, seeing as he's a veteran artist in his field. He brought up how much he loves the flat colors in this series, and I think I finally understand what he means by that and can now articulate it at least. This anime feels flat, but not in the typical way you would hear that being said. Usually that's saved for criticism, you know, like how people go back and watch old episodes of One Piece and it looks old. Well, what you're seeing sometimes is the flatness due to the lack of detail, shadows, or whatever it may be. Mind you, I'm not an expert on this. It took me 5 hours to draw Meatwad, and Master Shake wasn't looking any better. But as a layman, the flat colors contrast really well with the really detailed animation. It also allows the show to have its own unique look and art style, and I think it was a great decision for the studio to make. I've been hanging out on the Dandadan subreddit, my people, and a lot of casual fans seem to be gravitating towards Dandadan for many reasons, but one of them is the look of it. And honestly, just look at how Silky jumps around and has her hair tangled. These flat colors really just allow her to look more menacing, I think. Her jumps and movements seem so sudden and full of force and impact, and I think that's all because the flat colors allow the team to visually design the series in a way that allows them to have more of a balance between all aspects of the show. It allows the contrast the series is known for to shine through even in its animation because of it. Flat colors, crazy animation, I mean, you wouldn't immediately assume it, but that combination is actually genius. We then get this crazy moment where Silky tries to gobble up an unconscious Aira, vowing to chew her into pieces, masticate her, as she says, so she becomes one with her. And this shows that while Dandadan is a lot of fun, these supernatural beings are much more scary than the tone of the show often comes off as. It's another example of contrast. But now that they've entangled Silky, Momo holds onto her while Okarune eventually transforms and does the Gohan headbutt against Raditz. This was a cool throwback and an example of how Dandadan wears its inspiration on its sleeves, because after all, media is iterative and builds upon what came before. Why? Because that's human nature, my friends. And this is why I bring up One Piece often when talking Dandadan, because it's very clear that One Piece is a massive inspiration on Dandadan, even though you'd think those two aren't linked in any way. Another inspiration is the battle damage these characters sustain too. Of course, that's Dragon Ball Z, and as a kid, I always loved that. So the battle damaged versions of Okarune, Momo, and Aira are a real nice twist on their usual outfits. I love how Okarune's clothes are torn at the forearms, Momo's skirt is practically hanging on by a thread, while her pink sweater has its collar and chests disintegrated off with her shirt underneath coming apart by the seams. It's just cool looking, man. But good news, they got Okarune's nut back. Bad news, Aira is kind of freaking dead, yo. As Turbo Granny puts it, when an ordinary person gets eaten, they die. Which, not to be Captain Obvious here, but I think it happens if a normal person does it too. But I think this shows how inhuman Turbo Granny can be, because to her this is nothing special, it's normal. But Okarune and Momo give each other that look, without even having to say it really, that this isn't the right outcome and that all life is precious, even if that life has done you wrong. At the end of the day, everyone is in this together, right? So they get to work trying to resuscitate her, but they are cut short by one of the most surprising moments of the episode, and gory for sure. Silky comes back with a brand new haircut, which is to say no hair, and she explains that she is ready to offer her life to Aira to bring her back by transferring her aura to Aira. Get it? Aura? Ira? And this is important to know and remember in the future. An aura is akin to the motor of a vehicle. Without a motor for the heart, there is no use. It will not start. So Silky, in a surprising twist, rips open her jaw as a way to prove that what she says is true. She plans to help Ira. So the way it works is basically it's like jumper cables to a car's battery. Momo uses her powers to connect the two as she is the conduit to reviving Ira. And through that, we get one of the most heartbreaking and down-to-earth stories for a girl pretty much everyone wrote off as being a monster, and another one that people pretty much wrote off as being delusional. Silky and Ira, honestly, were anything but. We learn that Silky was originally a very beautiful woman, but she was a woman of the streets, selling her body for money to make ends meet. But she does all of this to make her baby girl grow up happy. And we see how she stands at the door, depressed. But when she opens that door, she walks in and smiles big, bright beams. Why? Because her daughter makes her happy. And in many ways, Silky was a tough and brave mother that quite literally sacrificed her own life to make sure that the life she gave birth to wouldn't have to worry or sell herself to the streets as she did. She also worked part-time jobs, being a janitor, being a cashier. Eventually, she would save up enough money to afford a red dress, a ballerina outfit for her daughter she saw in the store. Wanting to make her daughter happy at all costs, she bought it. And this also explains why Silky wears it, because her daughter meant everything to her. This gives the complete picture of a mother, literally the complete picture, it's beautifully told through collages at one point, of a mother who sacrificed everything for another life, even if it meant sacrificing her own. Which is why what comes next is beyond tragic. And it's actually not obvious at first what happens at the end. So let's get into it. It seems the man she slept with found out about her daughter and came in with his goons to steal her baby girl and likely traffic her. She tried her best to run after them and rescue her, even when she was bleeding out from all of her wounds, which by the way, but it was too late. So like a ballerina, she stands at the top of a building and took her own life while she leapt from it. And yeah, that's what happens. She jumps off a building at the end. Her child kept her alive, and without her in her life, well, there's no reason to live, so she stopped. Her final words being a solemn thank you to the brief happiness her daughter gave her. It's just sad, man. This episode really did make me cry because, in my life, I've seen something similar happen to my own family, and you never get over it. You can never grow from it. You have to live with it. And she obviously could not do that, which is why this hits so hard. I think for some people, it's easier to not deal with that pain. And hey, if you're feeling that way, I'll leave some resources in the description below. It's never too late. But the way the scene was presented animation-wise was brutal. Every punch, every kick, every scream, every inch of glass puncturing the mother's flesh. Winsy and Swaru made sure to make this scene as sudden and violent as possible, and I think that helped get across the contrast of this scene, how tranquil life can be, and also how sudden and twisted things can change, slowly then all at once. Which is when we get to something even more sad. I guess, funnily enough, I host a weekly anime podcast, which is called KOA. We cover seasonal anime there, and last week, my co-hosts, who know nothing about Ira, were dunking on her hard and calling her the worst. It was actually pretty funny because, I knew that once this episode hit, that everyone on the internet that wasn't a reader would be singing a different tune about Ira. Turns out that Ira herself lost her mother and was raised by a single parent, her father. And one day, she saw the acrobatic Silky and assumed it was her mother, and it wasn't. But if you remember, the mechanics of Dandadan work in that if you want to believe, then you will see a world beyond your preconceived notions. A spiritual world that opens up a whole new way to see life. So with this, you can assume that as a child, Ira was trying to cope with her mother's death and missed her so much that she would start to believe in spirits, to open up her young mind as she yearned for her mother's return that would never come. That's how she saw acrobatic Silky, and when she saw Ira, she remembered what she had forgotten about a long time ago. She does have someone to live for, her child, and she immediately saw her daughter as Ira and thus wanted to protect her at all costs, becoming her mother in her mind and in her actions. But she realizes that her obsession, her motherly love, has crossed the line. And so, as Ira is successfully brought back to life, just as soon as we can stop holding our breaths for a moment, we see Silky in her final moments as she dies, apologizing for nearly killing her daughter. And just as she did as a human, she repeats the cycle once again, choosing to die for her daughter. But there is a catch. In this state, she will not achieve nirvana, thus will be forgotten by everyone, spirit and human alike. Such a cruel way to go out. So the scene honestly just keeps tear-jerking and ripping out my heart as Silky starts to blame everything that happened on her own actions. She should have been the one to work harder, to buy her daughter even lovelier clothes, to give her a life in which there were no worries at all, but she failed her and thus brought her misfortune. Silky died believing that she caused her daughter's trafficking. Such a horrible way to die, and I feel like I wanted to reach across the screen, and hug her and tell her it wasn't her fault, everything will be all right. And it's amazing, honestly, that Wincy and Swaru felt that the viewer in that moment, they understood them and timed it perfectly to have Ira embrace Silky, just when you think it's, going to turn out in something really depressing. Telling her that she was the happiest in the whole universe, that her efforts weren't in vain, but helped her daughter be happy. And just because that horrible thing happened didn't mean she failed. How could she help that, But what she didn't realize is that her efforts were enough for her. There wasn't anything more that she could hope to achieve because she achieved everything she could. She was successful in being a mother. I kind of joke, but guys, I really, I've never cried this hard since the end of Attack on Titan in an anime, and I read this already too. I think it goes without saying, but this may be one of my favorite moments in anime this year. This is why Acrobatic Silky is seen as the quintessential Dandadan arc. It's the equivalent to the Bomb Girl arc in Chainsaw Man, or the Alabasta arc in One Piece, or Beyond Journey's End arc in Frieren. This arc just was so perfect in every way. The fact it made you hate Ira and then redeemed her by the end was perfect execution. It lets you view Ira from the lens of someone who grew up without the love of a mother, an incomplete family. So of course she feels these delusions of grandeur, that she is chosen by God and that her beauty is her defining trait. She never had a mother to tell her that. She was told to be strong in her absence, and this is how she coped, was through even religion. See, this is what I'm saying, like all of the time when I see people treat each other horribly, you simply cannot assume people are horrible just because you do not know what they've been through. There could be something horrible that happened to them. You don't know. And the same thing goes for them too. It's not one-sided, so treat your fellow man and woman with kindness, please. No matter what their beliefs are, be compassionate people. That's how humans live, with love and joy. I mean, look at what Silky did for her daughter. Guys, this episode was a masterpiece, no matter which way you slice and dice. Wincy and Swaru went so far to make this even more impactful than the manga version. So I want to know your thoughts down below. What do you think about this episode, and what are your thoughts on Ira and Silky now that we know where they're coming from? I also challenge you to get this video to 1,250 likes, as well get 10% off your order of gamer subs using my partner code. Check out my Dandadan channel, where I upload new videos on the chapters when they come out every week. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.